it's time to talk about evolution in the animal kingdom. Animal kingdom evolution is a little more complicated than the summary of plant evolution, and that's because animals are such a diverse group of life forms. But all animals started with this step forward right here at number one. There were choanoflagellates. They are small eukaryotic life forms that were swimming in the seas. And choanoflagellates are basically a cell that is shaped like a coffee cup, and they have a flagella inside their coffee cup structure that actually whips the water and draws in cells, algae and other things swimming in the water, and they fed on those cells using that strategy. Those gave rise to the first multicellular animals here at number one. So where you see that little stem right there, that led up to the sponges. The sponges are the simplest of all the animals. They are the first animals on Earth. The only thing that makes a sponge an animal is that it is multicellular, it is heterotrophic in that it eats food, and like all animals, it has a form of collagen in its body. Collagen is a major structural protein in the animal body design. Sponges, over 570 million years ago, gave rise to the next life form. Sponges could not move. Most people think animals are intrinsically movable creatures, but they're not. But the evolution of nerves and muscles at number two here, which was significant, that gave rise to the next group of animals at number two here, the stem, jellyfish. Jellyfish, sea anemones, corals, and hydras are a step forward in animal complexity in that they can actually move, but they are not technically hunters. By movement, they could move through the ocean and increase their chances of finding food and decreasing competition by growing in specific places on the ocean floor. But they weren't really what we think of as true predators. A major step, I guess arguably one of the biggest steps in the evolution of animals is number three here. At number three, what we have is cephalization, the evolution of the head. So while sponges and jellyfish have no head, and they do not have eyes and other sensory equipment concentrated around a brain area, which is what the head is, the flatworms, which were the very first group that came about here, the flatworms did have a head. They did evolve a head with eye spots. They are the first hunters. They could both find food and seek mates. This was a major step forward in the evolution of the animal kingdom. Animals before that were not what people think of as traditional animals. Animals after flatworms are all movable creatures for the sake of finding things. They're navigators. Sponges and jellyfish really didn't navigate. Sponges didn't move at all. Jellyfish move haphazardly. Flatworms move with a purpose. So after the evolution of the flatworms, at number 4 here, we have the development of an internal body cavity called the coelom. And what that allowed, that's here, what that allowed is the evolution of a body that was more flexible, that then could be used even more for different kinds of motion. A huge then split occurred in the animal kingdom, and this is an important one. This split led to 5, right here, the protostomes. Protostomes are animals that have what is called determinate development. What that means is, from the fertilized egg forward, every cell is determined to form a specific body part. Any tampering with the embryo whatsoever, removal of cells, or any damage results in loss of the embryo and death. This line led to the biggest force of animal life on Earth. First, the mollusks, an early evolutionary product of the protostomes. They're not segmented, but this includes a very successful group of animals on Earth. They are the second most prolific animals on Earth, from squids and octopi through the snails, slugs, and then clams and oysters and bivalves and whatnot. That led, though, to number 7. 7 was segmentation. Segmentation is repeating body patterns. We humans have that in our spinal cord. It's a segmented series of bones. Well, here we have external segmentation happening with the arthropods and the annelids. So annelids are earthworms. Arthropods are things like insects and spiders, or arachnids and millipedes and centipedes, and the crustaceans. The arthropods are the most forceful animal life group on Earth. They dominate by numbers of species and biomass. All other animal groups on this cladogram combined do not add up to the biomass of the arthropods. So on this side of the tree, this is arguably the most successful group of animals on Earth by sheer biomass and numbers. But something else happened on the other side of this map here. At number 6, a different kind of evolutionary development came about the same time that number 5 did. And number 6 is indeterminate development. What that means is the early embryo does not have every cell determined. And what the embryo does instead is it forms a ball of cells, and then the cells actually determine the fate of the organs they're going to form in the body. Well, that first gave rise to the echinoderms, which are the starfish, sea urchins, not sea anemones, starfish, sea urchins, sand dollars, are crinoids. They're all in this group. Those are echinoderms. From the echinoderms, really maybe the second most important event on this cladogram at number 8. Number 8 here is huge. Some freak mutation at number 8 caused massive cephalization in a group of animals that would eventually lead to us, called the vertebrates. So while number 8 down here below says, hey, it's vertebra, more importantly, number 8 is super cephalization of the vertebrates. And what scientists see when they look at the genome of vertebrates, at this point at number 8, there was a 4-fold increase in the genes of the vertebrates. And they were different than other animals, which only had one set of genes. The vertebrates, at least in the parts of the genome that controlled the development of their head, they had more genes. And with more genes, you can make more proteins. And with more proteins, you can make bigger bodies. And so we end up showing up with first the fishes here. The fishes were the largest mouthed animals on the planet. And some of them still are the largest mouthed animals on the planet. Massive heads, eyes, other sensory equipment, extremely advanced compared to the other animals that they were swimming around in the world's oceans. So at number 8, we have cephalization and vertebra. At 9, we have, the evolution of 4-legged creatures. Some fishes finding themselves on the margins of the land and finding some food on the land because plants had already invaded the land, began to move. Meanwhile, at the same time, arthropods were moving to the land also. But amphibians came from a special line of fishes called the sarcopterygian fishes. The sarcopterygians are almost completely extinct now. Modern fishes are called actinopterygians. Actinopterygians are called the ray-finned fishes. Ray-finned fishes are modern fishes, okay? So most of the fishes on Earth are actinopterygians. But the sarcopterygians evolved into the amphibians. They're called the lobe-finned fishes because they had little wrists to connect their fins to their bodies. The amphibians, very successful group to land, but they survive on land mostly by resisting dehydration. They don't survive on land by actually resisting I'm sorry, amphibians survive on land by resisting death by dehydration. Their skin surface is soft and moist, so they can't prevent evaporation easily. So most amphibians can tolerate massive water loss and still survive. That gave rise, though, to a better integument or skin. At number 10, we have the evolution of membrane support structures in a special egg and the evolution of external body coverings to cover that smooth, moist skin. So at 10, we have scales, actual dermal scales made of keratin forming by evolution. Below it says here that the amniota, embryonic membrane support structures, that was also a key feature at number 10. But number 10 is also the evolution just of an external integument to cover the body and prevent water loss. That allowed then animals to evolve that could go to desert regions and survive where no amphibian or very few amphibians could actually make a living. This gave rise to mammals. Mammals were around when the dinosaurs were running around on Earth, but they were a diminutive group of animals. They really were not great in number, and they were just food chain animals. So 11, the body covering evolves to be hair. The keratin, which is the same thing that's in lizard scales and crocodile scales and turtle scale shells, etc. The hair was an excellent body covering for warmth, and it could be used for camouflage and all kinds of things. Mammals also developed mammary glands through evolution to feed young, which was different than other animals which were laying eggs. Mammals evolved to give birth to what we term live young, but of course they're alive, but they're not in an egg. The young are not surrounded by an egg. So at number 10, we have the evolution of specialized egg membrane structures, which allowed eggs to be laid on land, but then mammals turn around and further evolve to have their babies internal with egg membranes, but then the babies are born without a membrane on their surface, like humans are born. At number 12, we have the evolution towards the traditional scaly, body surface. And this leads to turtles, which is one of the earliest reptilian designs, and then lizards and snakes, more modern reptilian designs. But more importantly, it led to the archosaurs at number 15. The archosaurs gave rise to the crocodilians and birds and the dinosaurs. So you don't see dinosaurs on this cladogram because up here in this region, the dinosaurs are not presently alive. And this cladogram is showing a living map of the evolution of the animal kingdom. But the dinosaurs are up here. Relatives of the birds and the crocodilians, the dinosaurs dominated for 150 million years, evolving from their archosaurian ancestors. But some major cataclysm occurred about 66 million years ago and wiped out really all the large animals on Earth in all groups. And the dinosaurs, most of them being large reptilian-style organisms, they perished. Their relatives, the birds and the crocodilians, survived being smaller, and today they are still alive and populate the Earth. The birds are the most successful terrestrial vertebrate, and still the fishes are the most successful vertebrate, period. There are more species of fishes than any other group, but there are more species of birds than any other terrestrial group of vertebrates. So those are the primary high points of the evolution of animals as shown on this animal evolution cladogram.